Your phone buzzes. It's your bank. And before you even swipe the notification, your stomach already knows. You opened it anyway. $847. That's it. That's everything between you and the end of the month. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet, terrible thought. What if something breaks? What if the car makes that sound again? What if the doctor's office calls back? Most people live inside that question every single day. This video is about getting out of it permanently. Here's what nobody tells you about financial stress in America. It's not a discipline problem, it's a design problem. According to Bankrate's 2024 Emergency Savings Report, roughly 1 in 4 Americans, 25%, have zero emergency savings. Not low savings, zero. And the Federal Reserve's most recent consumer survey found that only 55% of U.S. adults said they could cover 3 months of expenses from savings alone. That means nearly half the country is one unexpected bill away from a crisis. And the American Psychological Association, in their 2024 Stress in America report, found that 64% of adults cite money as a primary source of stress. So let's stop pretending this is about people being careless. The system was never designed to teach you how to build a financial buffer. School taught you the quadratic formula. Nobody taught you what happens to your decision-making when your bank account hits $200 and rent is due in 4 days. Here's what actually happens. Your brain shifts into what behavioral economists call a scarcity mindset. Princeton researcher Eldar Shafir documented this extensively. When people feel financially squeezed, cognitive bandwidth drops. You become hyper-focused on today's fire and completely blind to next week's risk. You reach for small comfort purchases, not because you're reckless, but because your stressed brain is looking for any form of relief. This is why telling someone to just budget better when they're living paycheck to paycheck is like telling someone drowning to swim harder. The advice isn't wrong. The timing is. We're not going to talk about a 6-month emergency fund today, because here's what the research on behavioral change actually shows. When the goal feels impossible, people don't start. They wait. And while they wait, life keeps charging them late fees, overdraft fees, and 24% credit card interest. So we're going to build a $600 emergency fund in 60 days. That's $10 a day. And before you say you don't have $10 a day, I know. That's the point. We're not going to find it by suffering through a stricter budget. We're going to engineer a system that finds it for you. Why $600 specifically? Because a $600 buffer stops what I call the financial domino effect. One flat tire turns into a missed car payment, turns into a late fee, turns into a credit card charge, turns into interest on top of interest. A small, real emergency fund doesn't make you wealthy. It makes you stable enough to stop making expensive panic decisions. That's the actual unlock. Day 1 does not start with saving. Day 1 starts with separation. If your emergency fund sits in the same checking account you use for groceries, streaming services, and that random 2 a.m. online purchase, it is not an emergency fund. It is available money. And your brain treats available money as spendable money. That is not a character flaw. That is how the prefrontal cortex processes liquidity. Open a separate savings account today. Name it something that creates friction, do not touch, or emergency only. If your bank lets you hide accounts from your main dashboard view, hide it. Then set up the smallest automatic transfer you can commit to, not the most impressive one. If that's $5 a day, great. If it's $25 a week, great. The amount right now matters less than the automation, because the single biggest mistake people make is planning to save whatever is left at the end of the month. There is never anything left at the end of the month. The transfer has to happen right after payday, automatically, before your brain decides it needs something else. Your brain needs proof of concept. It needs to see the number move before it believes the goal is real. So week 1 is about generating the first $100 through 3 specific moves. First, go into your last 30 days of bank statements and find one subscription you forgot you were paying for. Not one you're willing to cancel, one you genuinely forgot about. The average American pays for 4.2 subscriptions they don't actively use, according to a 2023 survey by C&R Research. Cancel one today. Even $14.99 a month is $120 a year. More importantly, it breaks the pattern of passive spending. Second, implement what I call the 48-hour rule on every non-essential purchase for the next 60 days. You see something you want, you wait 48 hours. Not forever, 48 hours. The data on impulse control is clear. The emotional intensity of wanting something drops dramatically within 24 to 72 hours. Most of the time, after 48 hours, you just don't want it anymore, and the money stays in your account. Third, sell one thing this weekend. One thing. Go through your closet, your garage, your junk drawer, old headphones, a jacket with a tag still on it, a piece of exercise equipment you haven't touched since January. List it on Facebook Marketplace or Upwork. The goal is $40 to $100 in one weekend, and every dollar goes directly into the separate account, no detours. Week 2 is where most financial advice fails people because it goes straight to restriction. We're going to do something different. We're going to do a leak audit. Pull up the last 14 days of transactions and label every single expense with one of 3 categories. Must, which covers rent, utilities, groceries, and transportation. Maybe, which includes things you genuinely enjoy but could temporarily reduce. And mess, which is the impulse convenience spending you barely remember making. Here's what the math typically looks like for a person living paycheck to paycheck in a mid-size American city. Around $30 a week in food delivery on nights when cooking felt too hard. Around $15 a week in convenience store stops, a drink here, a snack there. Around $20 a week in small online purchases that showed up at the door and you barely remember ordering. That's $65 a week. Over 8 weeks, that's $520. We haven't touched your income yet, and we're already most of the way to $600. The leak audit isn't about judgment, it's about visibility. You cannot fix what you cannot see. Cutting only goes so far, so in weeks 3 and 4, we add income, not by starting a side business empire, but through 3 targeted moves. First, if your job offers any form of overtime, extra shifts, or project-based bonuses, pursue it this month specifically. 4 extra hours a week at $15 an hour is $240 over 4 weeks. That single decision can be the difference between hitting the goal and not. Second, pick one weekend money mission. Delivery driving, tutoring a subject you know, helping someone move, offering lawn care or house cleaning in your neighborhood. The goal is $100 to $150 in one weekend. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's also 60 days with a defined endpoint, and the payoff is not having to panic the next time life throws something unexpected at you. Third, and people consistently underestimate this one, call one bill provider and negotiate. Your internet provider, your phone company, your insurance. Ask them directly, is there a lower tier plan available? Are there any promotions I qualify for? Can you waive this fee? A 2022 Consumer Reports study found that 70% of people who called to negotiate a bill got some form of reduction. Even $25 a month is $50 over your 60-day window, and it continues saving you money long after. Here's the part people skip, and it's why emergency funds disappear. You have to define what an emergency actually is before you need it. Write this down in your notes app right now. An emergency is something that threatens your health, your housing, your transportation to work, or a core utility. A sale is not an emergency. A concert you really want to go to is not an emergency. A bad week that makes you want to order something nice is not an emergency. Having the definition written before the emotional moment hits is the difference between a fund that survives and a fund that slowly gets drained for good reasons. And add one more rule, the replace first rule. If you pull $150 from the fund for a real emergency, a car repair, a medical copay, your next financial goal before anything else is to replenish that $150. This keeps the fund from slowly eroding after every legitimate use. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Derek. Derek was 29, working a solid job in logistics in Atlanta, making decent money, not rich, not broke by the numbers, but every month was tight in a way that didn't quite make sense on paper. Then he tracked his spending for 2 weeks and found $400 in monthly mess category spending he had no memory of making. He opened a separate account, set a $7 day automatic transfer, sold his old gaming chair and a set of dumbbells, and picked up 1 weekend of delivery driving in week 3. By day 45, Derek had $580 in his emergency account. Then his HVAC unit at his apartment started malfunctioning, and his landlord was slow to respond. He bought a portable unit for $140. Cash, no credit card, no stress. He told me later it wasn't even about the $140. It was the first time in 3 years that something broke and he didn't feel the bottom fall out of his stomach. That shift, from constant financial fear to quiet, steady capability, that's what we're actually building here. The emergency fund isn't the destination. It's the foundation everything else gets built on. You cannot make clear financial decisions when your nervous system is in permanent low-grade panic mode. The $600 isn't about being wealthy, it's about being stable enough to think straight. And stability is the prerequisite for every other financial move you'll ever make. Here's your action for today. Open the separate account, set the smallest automatic transfer you can commit to, and pick one fast win for your first $100. Do those 3 things before you sleep tonight. If this breakdown hit differently and you want to keep understanding money the way they never taught you in school, then subscribe to Decoded. We decode the psychology, the systems, and the real mechanics behind wealth, so you stop reacting to your finances and start understanding them, one video at a time. See you in the next one.